Hail, hail, the Celts are here. Welcome back to the Sorare Celtic Supporters Club, the CSC. I'm Quinny, joined again by McBrideACE and Etienne23. And we're off the back of a huge derby win at the weekend. And guys, I think can we say the league is won now? Is that us?
Celtic FC are riding on the edge of a lightning bolt, Quinny. What's that, 2 in a row? 2 in a row, incoming. Well, so yeah, another 8 to go. Get back to that.
Yeah.
Holy that.
What are we at now? 11 out of 12? Is that where we're at? No, 10 out of 11.
It's actually mad. See if you go back like 20 years or something, like the amount of titles we've won out of the last 20 years is just crazy.
I agree. I think I said to you before, but when you've been over here to watch games with me, like if you do look at the early 2000s and stuff like that, and you look at like the helicopter games, and we won't go too much on a tangent, but how tight some of the leagues were. If some of them went the right way, like we would have got like a 7 in a row or something like that, you know, back in, you know, so yeah.
And obviously you have to move
even further.
You have to move this show on, but we're
not going to.
Is it 3 titles, three more trophies, and then we can claim to be the most successful club in the world. So there you go.
They're quaking in their boots. So that's the semi-final coming up for that reason. I've not heard them moan about that yet. I think they maybe keep that one quiet. But yeah, that semi-final coming up.
I'll see the real Rangers in the semi-final. We've been told about this for a good number of games.
Well, I was at the game to see the real Celtic. So it was a really good match. You guys watched it from home, or did you just go out for it? What did you just get up to?
Well, I had COVID, so I was sitting on my couch. But the atmosphere seemed quite good. Even just that's what I was saying earlier, just through the TV, like seemed brilliant. But I thought it was a good game, pretty entertaining as well. And it was Rangers come out a bit more than they did before, and yeah, I thought it was a great game. What do you think, Sean?
Watched it with Mark Patrick Rea. It's a lot of screaming at the television. It's funny because obviously there was a one controversial refereeing decision that has just been blown out of proportion. I mean, when you consider some of the stuff Celtic have went through, I mean, like on record, officials actually cheating, you know, to stop the what was it, the George Cadet thing. Yeah. It's just mad levels of like uncovered actual cheating at that level. And you look at that incident with Morelos and it's soft. You see the way it works. The referee thinks he saw a push and there's a clear two-handed push action. And it's the way they're going on about it is just so over the top, so exaggerated. At the end of the day, that was a coin flip type game. And they just came off worse. And Celtic have just got devastating players. You can't really mess about with Celtic. You really need to find a way to stifle them a bit better than Rangers did. And like you said, McBride, they were a bit more open. They didn't do the Steven Gerrard 4-3-3 narrow thing where they just try and kill the game and hack and hassle. They tried to be a bit more expansive, and I've got to say, like, being a Sorare player, if I put that hat on first and foremost, that guy Raskin's clearly a good player. Tillman's clearly a good player. Like, they've got good players, but Celtic, I mean, that front three is just devastating, isn't it? And soft goals aside, harsh decisions aside, like, Celtic could have scored a few more goals, really, with better decision making. We've got guys through goal doing cutbacks. So yeah, it was a good. Yeah,
there's like nobody there. It's like, what are you doing?
I know. You can imagine from a Sorare perspective, there's got to be someone on the site had him in their team. They've been absolutely going crazy if you did that.
On the controversial air quotes decision, what I don't think anyone's kind of mentioned that I would kind of throw against that is, do you put that exact incident in the other box and you imagine Alistair Johnston's attacking that ball as an attacker? That would be a penalty to Celtic. You wouldn't be saying that's a free kick to Rangers, you know, because he's going away from Morelos to meet the ball and then he's pushed and then he goes down, you know, because that's the way it works. If that's an attacker in that same situation, you're saying 100% that's a foul. So because Johnston's a defender, it doesn't change anything. He's been pushed to the deck to going for the ball, you know.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
I think the angles now, like the problem with VAR as well is that when you look at it, it looks if he's been pushed, so they're not going to overturn that. So if the referee hasn't given it, and then they go and they look at it, then that's different. But after he's decided he's been pushed, it's got to be clear and obvious, or it's got to be a huge error.
Yeah.
When you look at that and there's some form of push, they're never going to overturn that in VAR.
No.
I think so.
And also McBrideACE, it's Vatican assisted referees. So even if it did go to VAR, I'm sure the Pope would be helping us out there, clearly.
See the part of all this I can't wear. Sorry, McBride. See the part of this I can't wear. See, being at the game, I was there with people that aren't Celtic minded and aren't Glaswegian or anything that came up from the game and whatever. And they were coming in at half time and full time saying that referee's giving them everything. You know, we had bookings galore. Like the whole team, well, the whole midfield and Carter Vickers were basically booked within the first half, give or take.
Yeah.
And like all these dodgy corner throw-ins, all that stuff, none of them went our way, you know. And I couldn't believe when I left the game and got like on the internet and Rangers fans were going crazy about decisions. I'm like, hold on a minute, like we got nothing in that game really. And from when I was sitting, you know.
Yeah, I think they're just clutching onto this kind of like when the manager took over, it was like 9 points, and we'll try and keep the gap to 9 points. And all right, we might not win the league, but if we've gone toe to toe and we've kept that gap and everything, that's, I mean, it's a 12-point gap. And I was saying to Quinn earlier as well, Sean, like earlier on the season, people were saying, oh, Furu's not clinical or whatever, he needs 3 chances to score a goal and everything. What was good to see was Furu and Jota getting chances and just been ultra clinical as well. It's like one touch goal.
Yeah.
Our first touch goal, like that was good to see, because there was no sort of messing about until Bernabeu get into the box and had a nosebleed.
It was a strange one, but we were speaking about from a Sorare perspective on the first episode that I was on. We were talking about Furuhashi's card being only good for decisives, and that kind of showed in that game. Like he got 2 goals, but he really doesn't do much else in the game, which is a good thing for him in that system. When it comes to Sorare, I mean, Jota just gets involved in the game so much more, and they're basically scored in the same way, because there's only like 4 positions in Sorare. But yeah, so effective. Celtic it's how I imagine it would have been to be on the other side of the 90s, you know, to just be winning games that were kind of a coin flip. And really, if you look at it, any team could have really won. I mean, as much as it pains me to say, I don't think Celtic outclassed Rangers or controlled the game, but there's tons of those games that we've been on the wrong end of over the years, and you've just got to enjoy just getting the breaks. And at the end of the day, we went 3-1 up, and game state's a huge thing, and we kind of controlled large parts of the game due to the times we scored and things. So I don't know. I would prefer that we had more control of that game and whatever, but it was entertaining. It was a classic 3-2. Lots of big scores in Sorare. Cameron Vickers, that was a letdown. Cameron Carter Vickers, his score was, I've never seen him put a score that low. It was like 35 or something.
Yeah,
96.9. I've got it on screen now. Picked up a yellow card in the first, I'm sure it was like 10 minutes or something. It was mad early.
And that kills a defender, doesn't it? Because they just can't be that aggressive. They can't go into duels as aggressively, and you know you're not going to get a clean sheet either. You're like, they're going to get a sneaky goal. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 goals against as well. So you know, as a -4 for a defender for goals now. So like any he had was done in by the 2 goals and the yellow card. But I mean, I don't care about Sorare this weekend. That team's a shite. I don't care.
I'm with you on that. I didn't really win much for my Celtic cards this week. Jota helped me with something, but to pick up on kind of what both of you said, like for me, the front 3 was the difference in the game. You know, whenever Rangers did threaten, like, you know, don't get me wrong. Well, the free kick they scored, fair play to them. That's a free kick, right? The goalkeeper should probably do better, right? But the free kick was good, right? The second goal, I've not seen a replay of, so I've not got an opinion of it. I don't really care. But our front 3 were just electric. You know, every time we went through, like you said, Sean, we could have scored way more than 3 in that game. You know, it was just maybe a decision going on our way or from an individual player, what they're making on the pitch, as well as maybe a free kick that went for Rangers maybe should have been for us, could have been another opportunity created and all that kind of stuff. And you know, Furuhashi, Jota, both those guys really stole the headlines at the weekend. Jota dropped 100 points with 2 decisive actions. He was, you know, really lively in the game, and it's something I've been crying out for on the Celts Are Here channel like all season, like a game that Jota properly has his name across. And I think this game, it was, you know, Jota's match. Alistair Johnson man the match, but by the way, honourable mention, huge score from him, huge game from him. I'd give him man the match as well, but in terms of the headline, it's definitely Jota, isn't it, on this one?
Aye, I suppose it is. But I mean, I'll tell you whose match it wasn't. Aaron Moy. What was going on? That was that opening 15 minutes was just comically bad. I mean, it was because I've got to say, I think I've apologised for how harsh I was when Moy was signed, because I just thought this is just James McCarthy all over again. Like, why are we signing someone who's that immobile and that, you know, he's just not that athletic? But he's just, to his credit, such an incredible technical footballer that he just gets by. But that opening 15 minutes was a real warning sign. Like, if we're going to scale up to the Champions League, we just can't we need guys to do both. We need guys that are fit, athletic, can move across the park, and also be technically very good. Obviously, he's not fit. He's not fully fit, and I get that. But it was just a little glimpse into how do Celtic improve? Like, how do we get better? And I think that was a glimpse, because as much as we don't like Rangers, as much as we want to discredit them at every turn, they are a good team. They are a much better team than we usually face domestically. They are a European benchmark into Europe. They're a decent European team as well. And they highlighted some of the risks on our end in that game, which Celtic have to use. Hopefully Postecoglu sees that and goes, we probably need more athletic eights if we're going to really do something in Europe. But in terms of, you know, whose game it was, Johnston, you mentioned, was outstanding. Jota was outstanding. Furuhashi, lethal. Maeda, very poor score, and Sorare, just because it's events-based data. It's about, you know, shooting and duels and things like that, and a lot of what he did wouldn't have showed up in any of that. So quick. There was one moment in the game where Rangers played this weird little quick free kick. They tried to get in behind. Maeda was just on it, just intercepted it instantly. And I think also from pressing from the front, he's just so important to how we play in it. I think you just get a real understanding of why Postecoglu likes him so much. Because I think he's the catalyst for so much of what's good about us pressing and getting that ball back and just being a nuisance. The last thing I'll say about it, though, on that kind of topic is I don't understand how we can have so many players like Maeda and Furuhashi and all these super quick players, and yet their right back is allowed to just wander into the 6-yard box all the time. You think there must be some space to exploit here. There's got to, like, I'm just praying for the day Celtic just rip Rangers apart for just the fact that their right back's allowed to just roam wherever he wants. And there doesn't seem to be, and maybe I'm wrong, but I want to see more obvious consequences for that. It just irritates me, it irks me that that Tavernier just gets allowed to just be so gung-ho.
I think if you look at the Celtic team, and you're trying to build if you imagine your Ange, you're the defensive, or Strachan, I think Strachan does the set pieces, doesn't he? And you're going to say, right, this is how we're going to defend corners. You're then going to grab a bunch of guys and tell them you're man marking, and then for this game, in any important game, obviously you'll designate them who they're man marking. It'll be, you know, and then. But if you look at the Rangers team, Barisic, the whole back four are big, and all four of them are coming up to the final third for these set pieces. Never mind adding in guys like Tillman, the striker, Morelos or Cholak, whoever's playing, Cantwell, and Jack gets it up there as well. So, you know, like we don't have 8 guys that can really mark to that caliber, you know. So when they do overload us to that extent, like you say, it's maybe something that's highlighted that we need to maybe watch out for going on in terms of what is the what's the breaking point of us defending set pieces? You know, how many men can we handle? How many? Basically that's what I'm getting at. So that's an interesting point you bring up, and that's just something that came to my mind. So I thought, because like, you know, if you put him up there with Suter, Davis, Barisic, and those other guys I mentioned, like, who are you asking to mark them? McGregor and Taylor to a point, you know? And then it's like, you can't always expect these guys to be winning headers and 50-50 duels in the air compared to Cameron Vickers, who will be on somebody different in Starfelt, you know? So it's a wee bit of that, perhaps. Does Iwata fix that problem? I think he made a great impact on the match when he came on. Do you think he can maybe fill in with some of that?
Yeah, I think Ange will favour him in a lot of the Champions League games and things as well. So you go back to Yokohama days, he used to play with two defensive midfielders for Yokohama, and they had a brilliant defensive record. Like the goalkeeper and the two centre halves were scoring hugely on Sorare, because they were quite solid in that area. I don't know if he offers much like from set pieces and stuff. I don't think he's much bigger than the likes of Hatate and stuff like that. But from an actual sort of presence point of view in the middle of the park, I mean, like Moy was just miles off it. Like the ball would come to him and it would just hit him. He would go 10 yards and he just didn't really look sharp. I think he's maybe just picked for experience in that game. I mean, Iwata's not played many games full stop, has he? Far less getting chucked into an Old Firm game. But I think Iwata will do a good job in a lot of areas in there when you want to bring him in.
Yeah. I think Iwata is an interesting player because he presents a good problem, which is he is capable of progressing the ball and he's also press resistant, which are two things that Callum McGregor is. But he's a better defensive player than Callum McGregor is, and his instincts are just more naturally defensive. You see him getting on the right side of players when there's a defensive transition. He just makes sure he gets his body in the right areas. He's just much more alert in that way. It's much more natural, and it makes sense. I mean, Callum McGregor not long ago was playing in the wing and playing as a real advanced number 8.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I mean, what do you do? Do you have a double? You know, like you mentioned, McBrideACE at Yokohama F. Marinos, they'd had a 4-2-3-1. It was Takuya Kida and Iwata. Do you do that? Do you do a 4-2-3-1? But then where does Hatate play? You know, where does what kind of the balance of the team shifts and the roles change completely? And also Iwata can play at centre back. However, he's not a very good dueler in the way that Starfelt and Carter Vickers are. He'd been put there to progress the ball, and is it even worth doing that when we've still got Joe Hart in goals? You know, maybe you do that when you've got, I don't know, you've got more of a sweeper keeper, an Arijanet Muric type goalkeeper. Did you see his Cruyff turn the other night?
I did.
At the goal line, basically. Unbelievable. So it's an interesting one. It's a good problem to have, because I think Iwata needs to be played week in, week out, and we have to try and play a system domestically that will allow us to scale up to the Champions League and get those players tested in some kind of way. But I just don't know if there's enough teams in the Premiership that are going to really give us the opportunity to test, you know, those guys. So I get the situation's not great, but we need to play Iwata. We need to find a way to have Iwata in the team. Maybe Hatate needs to play inverted fullback like he was playing. But then where does Johnson play, and then where's Taylor? It's just there's not enough actual positions in the pitch.
That's a good problem we have, though. We've still got to go to Ibrox as well, though. So the good thing about being 12 points clear, like I think, like obviously Hatate's struggling just now. I've seen something today say he might not even make this weekend. So I think it'll be kind of like just kind of easing them back for the cup semi-final. That's my feeling on it. But like you're gonna wait to play Kilmarnock away, sing away game and stuff. But that's a game where I think Celtic will just dominate the ball again, you know, because they're at the bottom of the league, and you know, are they going to come out and risk getting a hiding? I don't know. So, like, you're right. I mean, you're not playing against these teams week in, week out, and that's part of the problem. It's even the tactical approach. You're playing against a lot of low blocks or or maybe guys who are a bit of a target man and they're just going to kind of miss out the midfield a wee bit and try and cause you some hassle from that point of view. But I do agree. I think it'll be a good signing. I think being able to actually beat Rangers 3-2 and not having Hatate is a good compliment, or a huge compliment to the other options that we've got there. Because even if you maybe started with Iwata and left Moy out, you still win the game, but you do have different options there. And then obviously when you're playing against likes of Kilmarnock, you've got guys you can bring in like Haksabanovic and Turnbull, where they're more of a attacking focus, so you can maybe get away with them in those games. So because next year, like in the Champions League, so we're going to be in the Champions League, aren't we? Like,
right.
You're going to have a lot of games to play again as well, So you might have to play a certain way in the Champions League, but then play more attacking players at the weekend or whatever. So it'll be interesting to see how we progress from that point of view and how we kind of learn the lessons from previous year.
Yeah, I can see that totally. And with that in mind, let's see, looking at the table, Kilmarnock will obviously feature in the bottom six post split, as it's almost confirmed most of the bottom six. But interestingly, onto your point, onto both your points, Kilmarnock are the lowest scorers in the bottom six, and they have to get the second worst defence. So going into post split, they're also wanting to avoid relegation. They will not want a 9-0 coming their way or something like that, so it will be about keeping it tight and not losing by too many. They're probably not expecting to score 26 goals in 31 games this season for Kilmarnock. So it's definitely a game I expect us to see lots of the ball of. And I think it's about keeping the momentum going into the semi-final and the eventual final, as well as running all the way through the split. But like we've been talking about there with, so in the derby, we play McGregor, Moy and O'Reilly because Rio's not out. Rio probably won't play against Kelly either. And then, as we're talking about there, he'll be kind of bled back through, hopefully, or probably. So what midfield do we see show up at the weekend? Do we see Moy, O'Reilly, McGregor again? I wouldn't think so. I don't think Moy. I think Moy was notably off the pace at the weekend, and I think the manager will hold that against him when it comes to picking a team now, and maybe give someone else their opportunity. But I know we've spoken about it, but when you look at the rest of the squad, I know he's not going to take Kyogo out, right? Kyogo played 85 minutes at the weekend. Maybe Kyogo plays less minutes this weekend. Maybe he just comes off at 60 on the button, gives O an extra, O gets on the pitch a bit longer.
Yeah, I can see that,
But would you expect there to be many or any changes outside of, maybe a Iwata for Moy or something to the starting 11?
So probably 10 out of 11 or 9 out of 11 that started it. I think you can see a good basis of the starting lineup now. You can see, like, at one point you're thinking, is Maeda going to play on the left? You've got Jota, you've got Abada. Obviously, Abada's injured just now. Front three, just at the moment, just picks itself for us. And then, obviously, the defence, the defence been excellent as well. And if Taylor's fit, then I don't really see the need to rotate him in a game like this. Then you're onto the midfield. So I think you'll probably be like, 9 or 10 of the guys that started the Old Firm game will start this game again, as long as there's no unusual injuries.
I think Postecoglu, from what I've seen of him, is very aware of toxic combinations, and I think he highlights them quite quickly, and you don't tend to see them again once they've been done. I wouldn't suppose he would put Turnbull and O'Reilly that didn't work.
It's never.
There was one in the mid. There's some combinations that he's tried before, and you just watch him at the games, watch him in the touchline, and he just looks so disgusted with proceedings. We might be 3-0 up, but he just looks so livid. I think Haksabanovic and Abada, or Haksabanovic Jota, can be a bit like that as well. There's just we need a bit more selflessness in attack. And I think that's why he likes Maeda so much, because his head's up and he's just passing. Ataki's the same. They're maybe not as entertaining. Haksabanovic is such an entertainer and can score beautiful goals. But I think Haksabanovic, if you put the wrong combination out there, can become quite toxic to the overall, system. So I would just look out for that. I would say he's probably going to go pretty similar team. He's got to play Iwata. He's just got to play Iwata. The guy just needs to play. Maybe he pushes McGregor up to 8 again. He can do that against Kilmarnock with his eyes shut. But you get Turnbull there, but I just think Turnbull, you just can't have Turnbull. No, he's not. And I feel quite sorry for him because he's clearly a very, very good player that should be at a club playing week in, week out. But yeah, I think probably same team. I don't know, Bernabe, would he get a little... Are we looking for this fixture?
We've got, I think we've got this game and then we've got another week and then there's another week. So the advantage you've got just now is no midweeks.
Right.
I suppose it depends how Taylor's come out that game because Taylor wasn't in training until like the day before. So I think they gave him as much time as possible with a dead leg. So I suppose there's maybe a small risk that they just say, well, just give him a week off or whatever.
I mean, this is like a Sorare show. So it's a Sorare perspective of looking at Celtic team. Maybe it's worth just thinking, right, maybe he is going to rotate and maybe you just have a fun little team that has Iwata, Kobayashi, Bernabe. They're like the Celtic second team and just have fun, just fling them in and see what happens, you know, because it's happened before where you've just been shot. You look at a team and you go, oh my God, all those guys that I've just put in speculatively actually started. You know, so it's something that maybe to think about, and you can get them for a lot cheaper because they're not going to be certain to start.
Cap mode or something, because obviously you guys have not been playing, so I'll get you under the cap for a 220 or something.
Exactly. O, for example, O's going to get 30 minutes, right, against Kilmarnock. Could even start the game because, like you said, Kyogo played 85 minutes. So you could do a little Celtic second team and easily fit under the cap and easily get a goal from O. Well, if he starts, you would expect a decisive from O. And Bernabe, at inverted fullback, would rack up a super high score. Iwata's scoring, when he started that game against Ross County, did not get a 75 or something. He had an excellent game, played the whole game. You'd expect Kobayashi would get a big score at left centre back in that system. So it's always one to think about.
One name I had in my mind coming into the show today was, do we see some minutes for James Forrest this weekend, perhaps, with there being...
I would love to. Would love to. Is he fit? Is he
I don't know, actually, that's a good point. Actually, I think he was
in the
actually last week.
Yeah. Seen him walking outside. I seen the whole team actually walk out in Nando's. And James Forrest actually looked... Well, he was walking, so there's not really... But he wasn't in a big, caster.
He's not lost his legs, he must be fit.
Must be all right. Get him on, get him playing. No, James Forrest's rare card is like a £5 or something, which, knowing how good a player James Forrest is, I mean, a £5. Yeah. Mad.
Because Bernabe won the left wing in that game,
Yeah.
You
think he went at left back, Bernabe? He came on at left wing, Taylor was still on.
Aye, you're right. Aye. That's why he was up for that. Yeah, he actually played really. It was a good bit of thinking actually, because it maintained the continuity of having a Maeda there, didn't it? Which is important for, I think, to try and deal with Tavernier. But the one annoying thing is that Tavernier just still gets away with just doing headers in the 6-yard box, and you're like, why are we not? Maybe it's just really... do you know what, Quinny? Football's very, very difficult. I think that's probably... it's just a difficult game.
How many times you play against a team where the right back's showing up in the 6-yard box? I mean, even like you think back to the Rangers European run, like Tavernier, I think, scored 2 goals at home against Dortmund. And he's turning up at the back post. So, like... Even teams like that, they're probably not used to playing against guys where all of a sudden the right back's turning up in the 6-yard area. So as that type of thing, I suppose, even if you know them, can be hard to defend against because you're back 4, you've got the guys in front of you. All of a sudden somebody's turning up, and if somebody's not tracked them, he's just an extra man in the box or whatever,
And it's like a selective gung-ho, and they've probably figured that out because the people at Rangers, unfortunately, aren't actually daft. As much as we'd like them to be, they're not actually daft. I think
you could have fooled me.
You don't. Most people that end up in football, as much as I've slagged Gavin Strachan and all those guys as well, I mean, they're clearly, competent enough for Ange to have them around for a long period of time. So, but But yeah, they must do it for a reason, and they do get away with it. Like you said, they scored, a couple like that against Dortmund, just overloading the back post with a right back. But even Celtic, you don't even see Alistair Johnson or anyone at Celtic really doing it. It's such a frustrating thing, and maybe it's just because your brain thinks more simply, like, well, if the right back's there, then there's space there, but they'll probably get some guy filling in for them, and
or something.
It's one thing Rangers did really well under Gerrard was they were just very solid and compact, and they just all filled in for each other. But you definitely see the cohesion's not really there with them anymore. And Celtic just have this system that just is very pleasing to watch, even when it breaks down a wee bit. And against Rangers there, I don't think Celtic played particularly well to the standards we know they can play. There wasn't many successful passes in the game, like compared to how we usually pass. But at the end of the day, those games are just different, aren't they? They're just totally different. And we exploited them as much as we could and got the win. Yeah.
Happy days. What were we thinking for Kilmarnock, assuming you get a similar lineup? I was having a look. I think we won 5-0 there earlier on in the season. We won 2-0. I think we beat Kilmarnock 2-0 in the Cup. We might have won 3-0 at home. I don't know if we got that the right way around. But
I've got on Sorare data.
Yeah, played them 3 times this season, 2 in the league and 1 in the Cup. And I think we've won 0 every game. So now we say that. Yeah. Joe Hart's definitely going to concede, isn't he?
So last trip to Rugby Park in the league, we won 5-0. Joe Hart clean sheet. Moritz Jens got on the score sheet, as did Jota Furuhashi. Starfelt from the bench, and Giacomakis. If you remember that game, Moritz Jens scoring and going off injured. And then
overhead kick he scored, wasn't it? He was like an overhead kick. Mad.
Yeah.
The midfield that day, O'Reilly, Turnbull, McGregor.
Interesting.
Well, Celtic have obviously got the best XG against in the whole league. I think it's like 0.9 or something like that. So Celtic don't really concede goals against, anyone really. Highest XG in the league, Celtic again. So just going from that, you're just expecting a casual win here. Kilmarnock's kind of mid-table in performances, like underlying performance metrics and stuff. They're kind of mid-table. They're okay, not terrible, not great. But Celtic would just kill them with that system, that 2-3-5 thing, where they just absolutely the centre backs are pushed up, making final third passes. Just whenever Kilmarnock do get the ball, what are they going to do with it? How are they really going to harm Celtic? I don't really see how Kilmarnock get anything out of this fixture. And it's a similar story for most teams, because I just don't see enough innovation in Scottish football either. It seems like other Scottish teams have just accepted that that's it. They can't compete. It's from one of the strangest times in Scottish football, actually, that there does seem just to be this thing where, they've got more money than us. What can we do? It's like, well, go and get smart people to come to your club. Hearts are hardly a tiny club, are they?
Yeah, big
get
club.
Lots of resources. They just act like they're these minnows. Yeah, I get your revenue is significantly less than Celtic's, and you have significantly less resource, but Bodo Glimt don't sit and moan about that. They just figure out solutions. Get smart people. Queen's Park are about to be in the Premiership. If they keep going the way they're going, why is that? Because they've got a bit of money and they're smart about it. Long story short, Kilmarnock have no chance unless they get some geniuses in to work on some kind of algorithm to figure out this Celtic puzzle. But no, Celtic just too good, and hopefully it's like a 4-0 or something. That would be nice for the scores on Sorare.
I think I'm going to go the stack. I mean, I went stack against Rangers as well, but a sort of heart overhead type of thing there as well. But I think this is actually a good fixture to stack. I think the centre halves will rack up a good 15-20 base or something, in connection with passing and And then obviously if you get the clean sheet on top of that, and then you're just trying to pick out the decisives and stuff, and that was frustration the weekend. Obviously, I had O'Reilly got the assist, and Furuhashi get 2 goals, and the Jota and our team and stuff, and the other guys were rotten really in terms of scores. But this is one, I think, if you pick out the guys who get the decisives, you'd expect to be kind of right up there, you know. Like try to think stacking away. I mean, obviously there's no Hatate. People in limited sometimes like firing out that sort of defender card for Hatate. It might be a day maybe use Johnson defender card or something, because you think like the fullbacks are gonna be quite high up the pitch. So that could be a good differential rather than going for centre halves. These types of games, I don't feel as if they suit Maeda that much, but sometimes he comes up with these worldy performances. But I just think if you've got a Jota, I just don't see how you can leave him out. Obviously, I think you just got to.
It's the lines we've had from Ange in the past, that Ange wants Maeda when there's space in behind, when there's space for him to travel into, and when the whole team, when Kilmarnock are going to sit with 2 banks of 4. You know, how can he press 10 guys? You know, I'm sure he'll try, but it's not the same. It's not the same experience.
Exactly.
You know, So maybe once somebody like Haxa or Turnbull, maybe they can have the ball tight to feet and maybe move in between the lines.
Yeah, agreed. And because Dyson Maeda at Yokohama Marinos, absolutely in behind all the time, made this diagonal run, and just nothing defenders could do about it. Because in Japan they weren't playing such low blocks, and in Japan, even though there's lots of great teams, there's not a team completely overpowering the league the way Celtic do. So Maeda just had much more space, and it's a weird bittersweet thing with Maeda, because even though you get to dominate the games and stuff, you don't really see the best of Maeda, because he is a player that really, a lot of his best traits are come to the surface when he's playing against the opposite of a low block, and he's got that space in behind, and you see him make a lot of runs as well that players aren't. It's not that they're not trying to find him. It's probably just a very difficult pass to play, but there's so many times he does that diagonal run and they just don't play the pass because they just keep it more simple. But I kind of get your thinking there as well. It's like Maeda, to me, as much as I like him as a player in real life, I'm always hesitant to select him in Sorare teams, because there's just better options out there in the forward card areas. But I did overuse him when he was a U40 back in the day, the underdog and all that. I used him for the U40 thing, and he was unbelievable for that. But just now, it's definitely not as powerful as a Jota card, for example, nowhere near.
And if Kyogo can get 2 goals and bring in a 7-8, that's a pretty good forward score, if you ask me. I know you need 2 decisives to get him up there, but 2 decisives to get 80-ish isn't bad in my book. But one thing I wanted to say is I've pulled up the last time we played Kelly. It was actually at home. I told you about the last time when Starfelt and Jens got the goals. I think Carter Vickers on that day scored a 54, right? The last time we played them, 2-0 victory at Parkhead. Carter Vickers with a 75 with no decisive, and Starfelt dropped 100 with no decisive on total AA performance. So if it's that kind of, that wasn't that long ago. That was the 7th of January. I beg your pardon.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So if that's the sort of play that they come out with again, then we're probably going to see Starfelt get 135 accurate passes again.
It's just brilliant, isn't it? It's just so good.
Lovely.
On that topic, Glennie, I remember one of the early times in Sorare, I was watching, it was one of those Asian Champions League games, and I had a guy called Hyun Seong Min, I think his name was, played for Ulsan, number 20, and he was an older guy and he was playing, and I was just getting to grips with how it scored, and they were playing this team from God knows where, and he was on for a 100 basically because he kept doing like 1-2s in the final third, and he did like 40 of them, and it was like, it was just ridiculous. And I was like, wow, this is unbelievable, this final third successful passes thing. Cameron Carter Vickers is the same. It's just like every time he plays those balls forwards, you're like, that's like half a point. So yeah. And that's why the Hatate card can be Hatate defender card can be so valuable, because he's making so many final third passes And for defenders, I think you get a kind of boost, don't you, for final third passes?
Yeah.
Aye, it's much better for a defender. But part of the problem you've got with the Hatate defender is possession lost, because whenever he
Possession
ball,
lost.
it's a huge penalty for a defender versus...
But you get the clean sheet bonus.
Yeah.
So
yeah, definitely. He's usually on until at least 60 as well. He comes off around about 60, but he
always locks that clean sheet bonus in, doesn't he?
locks it in.
Minutes, I've got my Sorare team sorted. But it's definitely, I think the defender card's probably has got the highest peaks. I think that when it came out, the forward card averaged the highest, which was weird, but it's probably not as playable just because like the defender card was the one hitting the hundreds and the 95s and all that type of stuff. And obviously, if people are playing limited, that's more relevant. Like obviously, you're playing super rare and there's like 8 cards available or whatever. You don't really need to worry about that as much, but if you're playing the limited division or whatever, that 5 points could probably end of the weekend's probably 40 positions or something, so it comes relevant, I think. So
and one good thing about Hatate being out, one thing that's good in the world of Sorare for those who maybe aren't fully acquainted with it is his score's going to come down. So Hatate, when he comes back, is going to be able to go into those cap teams a lot easier. Because there was a point recently where I couldn't get him into any cap teams. My rare forward of Hatate, I was having to squeeze in through all kinds of weird, wonderful ways. But now when he comes back after 3 or 4 DNPs or whatever, he should be easy just to slot back in and get some threshold money in the pocket. But
he was smashing it for a while, wasn't he?
He was up at like 60 something L15, and you're just like, in the cap system, you just can't fit anybody in that's doing that. But yeah, phenomenal player. But I think for Kilmarnock, I think I'll probably just go with Carter Vickers and Furuhashi, and I might do a little funny, Celtic second string team. But I've just got too many other players in teams that are similarly powerful in other leagues, similar to Celtic. Like Joey Veerman at PSV. It takes all the free kicks, all the corners. So, but pairing those guys up with the creme de la creme of Celtic is just always puts you in a great position to win something. So yeah, Carter Vickers might be starting alongside. Let's see who else I've got for this week. So Carter Vickers and Umar Soleil of Red Bull Salzburg. There's my fantasy centre back pairing. So
love it.
But yeah, so I think Celtic have got a good chance, but I just don't have the cards to stack them. But hopefully they'll pepper my Club Atletico de Glasgow squad. Will pepper nice scores, and I'll get some rewards, Quinny, because I need them. I need them badly.
I think it's got a tough one again. I was having a look because the weekend obviously it was really high scoring, so. I say that I had a bad weekend, but I had like a 390 somewhere that didn't even get a card. But the weekend, you've got Ajax, you've got Emmen, Ajax home to Emmen, Feyenoord are away to Camber. But the only thing with that is Feyenoord are playing Roma in the
they'll rest a few.
Aye, PSV are away at Volendam. Volendam are a bit leaky as well. All of PSV don't have a midweek game as far as I'm aware, unless they're in a cup or something. Sparta play Heerenveen, Utrecht play 20, so that's a hard game for 20. Because even a weekend, like 21 4-0 against Camber, and like all the guys who usually do good scores, like Small and Zaruki and all that, they all did high scores, and there was some huge scores put up in Holland at the weekend. So that's kind of our tip for people as well. You got to look at Celtic have got a really good game, but you can have a wee look at the other teams and see if they've got good games too.
Exactly.
Because, Ajax could easily take 4 or 5 off somebody at home. You think you've had a great weekend. You've just got to take it on the chin, haven't you? It's not, what can you do?
I know. And you're going to have game weeks where your squad's not changed. You've got the same quality players and just nobody scores anything, and you just have to accept that's just the way it goes. It's just sometimes the stars align. Most of the time they don't, no matter the quality of the player. I mean, I've got Remy Cabella and Joey Veerman and all these guys because they take all the corners and free kicks. So there's that little 5% boost of probability that they assist something, and also they just get cheap key passes, basically. But even employing all of that kind of thought, they can still just have terrible games and they just do nothing. And it's all been for nothing. And Sorare's quite cruel because you've got to wait to the next game week, and it kind of, there's no instant satisfaction. There's nothing to get yourself over, the disappointment of a really bad game week, But certainly I'm looking forward to this game week because there's great fixtures, like you mentioned, McBrideACE. There's like a lot of powerful teams playing not so good teams. So, like you say, Quinny, there's always a winning lineup in your team. You just got to find it. And sometimes you do yourself out of it as well, and that's just brutal. Like I took Veerman out of my team and put Seavold in, the little midfielder for Salzburg, and Veerman get 100, and Seavold get like a 50, and that 50 was just like, that would have been such a nice. That's so rare, isn't it? Got to take it in the shin.
There's the Chinese Super League's back this weekend as well, so I think the good thing about this weekend is I think everything is actually running. I don't think there's really any cups on.
Norway are all back now too.
Yeah, you've got everything running, so it's probably the highest weekend of games being available since Sorare started. So no, Chinese Super League's not a licensed league, but it's a covered league, and we've got loads of guys that have moved there for different clubs and stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously the MLS and everything, and yeah, I mean, obviously guys have got a really good team this midweek. They'll have a trade-off as well, because if you look at teams at the weekend, you think, well, are Real Madrid really going to put out like their same 11 between two Chelsea games in the Champions League? So there might be a wee bit of chaos thrown in there as well with some of those games, which will suit you if you don't actually target those games and stuff. And that's what's good about Celtic just now, because we're only playing every weekend, so I don't think you really need to worry about that. All right, there's probably going to be 4 or 5 changes because it's midweek type thing. I think it'll be relatively stable, hopefully. All things being equal with injuries and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think this is a game you can probably rely on your Joe Hart card. I think Kyogo's form isn't going anywhere. I don't think Jota's form is going anywhere.
Oh, you've said it funny. He's going to do 35. He's going to do 35. Why did you say it?
I think this is a good game for Hart. I like this game for Hart. But I think, I think what we've all kind of touched on, yourself especially, Etienne, like, there is definitely some good wiggle room with some Celtic cards this week, whether you've got them or not got them or whatever, for some of these other cap modes, like guys like Haksabanovic, maybe even Turnbull. All of these guys, Iwata could very easily start, if not make a real impact from the bench anyway. No one impacted the game from the bench at the weekend, and I definitely think that kind of hit squad of subs that come on individually will all be pretty frustrated at that, and they're gonna get their chance again. A lot of these players at the club are nailed on to feature. We're just not sure how many minutes they're going to get, etc. So I think Kelly away should be a good one for us, and it definitely, like, we started the show off talking about a bit of the meltdown and whatever with the decisions and whatever at the weekend. The pantomime, I don't know, this is one thing I want anyone to check out if they haven't already, but the Paddy Power fan denial that they done this week was...
I've seen that.
Oh, it was double sweet. It was a really good one. So I feel like we're just chest out now, chin up, and it's just like party time, We're winning the league, and let's just keep going, let's just keep winning. We never stop,
Yeah, absolutely. And also, you mentioned there just some of the fallout from the game. It's just... I think when you play so rare and you've got a different angle of how you're watching games and stuff, and you can appreciate the opposition have really good players because you're just calculating in a different way. You're less emotional about it. But at the same time, you just when you've got two rivals that discredit each other to the degree that Celtic and Rangers discredit each other, you just realise like so much of what happens after it is just complete, just if you want to listen to it for entertainment value, fine, but most of it just has no basis in reality. Some guys are the worst players you've ever seen, and the other, you've got the best players of all time. It's just like, it's just theatre. It's a bit like Roy Keane's punditry, you know what I mean? It's just pure entertainment. But I think, Sorare's a very good thing for doing that, because it just gives you a better perspective about what actually happened during the game and how to kind of look out for the players that really do affect the game, which is actually refreshing, because sometimes it just feels hopeless. It felt for me hopeless watching football sometimes in the past. You know, I didn't really know what I was watching. Now with Sorare, I kind of can keep an eye out in a level head, especially when the opposition actually do have good players, and I'm like, yeah, I quite like them for my team. But I would never do that. I don't think I could ever couldn't have one of them in my team.
I sold my James Sands as soon as he moved. I've supported New York for a fair length of time, and I did not mind selling that. As soon as that happened, I was like, I'm not touching this. Well,
I know.
Obviously, it was rubbish when he got there anyway.
But honestly, see this, the idea of sitting in and feeling an inner joy when you see penalty to Rangers on Twitter. The idea that is so, you get a taverny or whatever. Oh, it would just be so. Oh,
yeah, imagine if we get Rangers on as well, because they had a NFT deal and the company went bust. So
Sport them on go. They picked a winner there with that. Sport them on go.
Just associating themselves with going bust. But if obviously they get that resolved and they come on, because I was looking the other day, and because Barisic's got a Croatian card for the national series, that I was looking the other day, and he was number 17 ranked player in terms of averages on Sorare. So he's obviously, under the current system, he's been racking up a decent base, plus obviously getting goals and assists, because I don't think Tavernier shows up on that, because obviously he doesn't have any form of card whatsoever. But just seeing Barisic randomly 17th or whatever in all the rankings, like, because
insane amount of crosses and stuff. It's he's very high, and just again, it's because of their system, and their fullbacks are just basically their kind of main part of their system to create. And he's got, like, Barisic's crosses into the 6-yard box or something just dwarfs everyone else's from memory. But Rangers sport him on goal, didn't work out for them. But Quinny could have been a lot worse. Could have been John Terry's 8 Kids Club. So
or Michael Owen's guaranteed to make you money, NFTs.
Oh my God, man!
What a laugh! I know if you put money into them, obviously. Finish with fact of the day. Nothing to do with Celtic, nothing to do with Rangers or anything. There was a looking the other day, and Mbappe is currently 406th in terms of the Sorare data rankings on current form. 406th. That's how I watched a couple of PSG games, and he's been really not been playing well. He's missed a lot of chances and stuff, and he's rare. Price dropped the other day, and there's a whole debate about should this guy be dropping. It's like, well, he's timing out, and it's the end of the season, and he's playing rubbish. But I looked the other day, and Mbappe was 406th in the rankings, so it's only
167th
last 15, but you can see why there's not a big stampede to buy him.
Jota's 31st now.
Yeah, and on the way up as well. He's coming on the way up, in terms of averages with the recent hundreds. So
even Dyson Maeda is 352nd. I don't know. Mbappe, what the fall from grace is, and it's maybe something to do with, I don't know if you heard James Tavernier compared himself to Mbappe at the end of the game. I don't know if you heard that, but somebody asked him, he's like, "Oh, you scored 100 goals for Rangers now," and he's like, "Yeah, it's like Mbappe scored a hat-trick in the World Cup final and no winning it."
Aye, it's the same thing, James.
Aye, it's really similar. Yeah. Wow.
So maybe that's part of Mbappe's fall from grace. He's turning into a right back now.
It's funny. Carl Starkveld 48th on that Sorare data player rank. It's just funny because the perception and people's perceptions are right on Starkveld. Like, a lot of what he does is just awkward, and he's just not very good at it with the ball at his feet. It's just true. But in the world of Sorare, he just doesn't lose duels. And 48th on the whole side. Barisic's 24th. Just shows you the kind of the power it has also to be in a really good team as well. That's getting a lot of clean sheets relative to the quality of the league. You know, and
Starfelt
guys
and
like
Vickers undefeated in the league still.
that's crazy, isn't it?
The other
But
thing as well is Vickers and Starfelt are 16th and 21st in terms of defenders, but in that top 25, you'll not find two defenders from the same team, as far as I can see.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking rubbish. Grimaldo
Right.
and Otamendi.
What a shame.
But Grimaldo's going to be leaving in the summer, isn't he? So,
Yeah.
and actually, is it Benfica proper? That's Benfica.
Benfica, Ba and Otamendi are high. Yeah.
But like, that's why I think Vickers and Starfelt are a good combo, because you're not find many guys that get that high average. Like, you can actually play together in the same good fixture or whatever. You know, that's probably why Benfica guys are so good, because you just play them together. You know what guys score really well, that type of thing. So, I hope they all leave. Anyway.
Guys, thanks very much for joining me. We've had a great one. I'm looking forward to the weekend. I think we should probably get another good result on. I'll ask you this before going into the game. What do you think the score is going to be at the weekend, if you've got one?
4-0 Celtic.
4-0.
Yeah. Let's go 4-0.
4-0. I'll go 4-0 as well. We'll make it a full house of 4-0.
Aye.
So what's that? 8 decisives? Let's hope they all get...
Aye, and they all interact with each other. Jota to Furuhashi to, I don't know, set one up for Joe Hart or something. I don't know.
Yeah, why not? Last man tackle.
I felt would be good, maybe a Joe Hart assist or something.
Aye, totally. A big anomaly like that. A goalkeeper getting an assist would be good, but I don't think it'll need it. I think it'll be a simple 4-0 win. But beware of those other teams in Europe, because there is so many fixtures that could be. Celtic are going to have to outdo the rest of Europe in the Sorare stratosphere if they're going to be the most powerful kind of team. And I think it's going to be interesting actually to see if Celtic can come out on top, because they pretty much are the top 5 stacks, aren't they, Celtic? In terms of just probability to win week in, week out. So
yeah,
looking forward to it, Quinny. It'll be good, and when Hatate comes back, I'll have more equity in the Celtic performances. Yeah.
Hail.